Tonight, before you click away, before you decide this is just another story on the internet, I want you to do something strange. Look around your room. Not quickly. Slowly. Look at the corners. Look at the shadows. Look at the door. And now ask yourself one question. What if someone has been trying to get your attention for years? Not a stranger. Not a criminal. Not even a living person. But something that has been silently watching from the edge of your life. Because tonight's story is not about a haunted house. It's about a message. A message that changed one person's life forever. And according to some people, the same message might be meant for you. Years ago, a man named Daniel moved into an old house after the death of his grandfather. The house wasn't famous. There were no horror stories attached to it. No urban legends. No mysterious disappearances. Just an ordinary house sitting quietly at the end of a narrow road. At first everything seemed normal. But within weeks, strange things began happening. Not terrifying things. Just small things. Things that were easy to ignore. Footsteps upstairs. Doors slightly open. Objects moved a few inches from where he remembered leaving them. The kind of events most people explain away. The kind of events you're probably explaining away right now. Daniel did the same. Until one night. At exactly 3:17 a.m. He woke up. Not because of a sound. Not because of a nightmare. He woke up because he felt something. A feeling so powerful that it pulled him from sleep instantly. The room was silent. But he knew he wasn't alone. His eyes slowly moved toward the corner near the closet. And that's when he saw it. A shape. Not fully human. Not fully shadow. Standing perfectly still. Watching him. Daniel froze. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might explode. The figure didn't move. It didn't speak. It simply stood there. Staring. Seconds felt like hours. Then suddenly, it disappeared. Gone. As if it had never been there. The next morning Daniel convinced himself it was a dream. Sleep paralysis. Stress. Anything but the truth. But the figure returned. Again. And again. Always at 3:17 a.m. Always watching. Never speaking. Weeks passed. Then months. The appearances became normal. Imagine that. Something impossible standing in your room becoming part of your routine. But humans adapt to almost anything. Even fear. Then one night everything changed. The figure moved. For the first time. Slowly raising its arm. Pointing toward the hallway. Daniel's blood turned cold. The figure wasn't threatening him. It was directing him somewhere. Showing him something. And that was far more frightening. Because if something wanted him to follow. Why? The next night it happened again. The same gesture. The same hallway. The same silent command. Follow. Daniel resisted. 4 days. 4 weeks. But curiosity is powerful. Sometimes more powerful than fear. Finally, one night, he stood up. The figure appeared, pointed toward the hallway. And Daniel followed. Step by step. The house seemed different. Larger. Colder. Darker. The air felt heavy, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. The figure glided ahead. Not walking. Not floating. Moving in a way Daniel could never fully describe. It stopped in front of a storage room. A room his grandfather had kept locked. A room Daniel had never entered. The figure pointed at the door. Then vanished. Daniel stood there alone. Staring. His hand trembled as he reached for the handle. The door opened. Inside were dusty boxes. Old photographs. Forgotten memories. Nothing unusual. At least not at first. Then he noticed something hidden beneath a pile of blankets. A wooden chest. Inside the chest was a notebook. Old. Worn. Fragile. And on the first page were words that made his heart stop. If you are reading this, something has finally brought you here. Daniel couldn't breathe. The notebook belonged to his grandfather. Page after page described strange experiences. The same footsteps. The same shadow. The same figure. His grandfather had seen it too. 4 decades. But the most shocking part was still ahead. Near the end of the notebook, one sentence was underlined 3 times. The figure is not here to harm us. It is here to warn us. Warn us. About what? Daniel kept reading. And then he found it. A date. A specific date. Months in the future. Beside it were 6 words. Do not take the northern road. That was all. No explanation. No details. Just a warning. Daniel laughed. At first. It sounded ridiculous. A ghost predicting the future? Impossible. So he ignored it. Life continued. Months passed. The warning faded from memory. Then one afternoon the date arrived. Daniel was driving to a nearby town. Halfway there he remembered the notebook. The warning. The northern road. For a moment he considered turning around. But logic won. Ghost stories don't predict accidents. Old notebooks don't see the future. So he kept driving. Toward the northern road. Then something happened. Traffic stopped. A police officer redirected vehicles. Everyone was forced onto another route. Annoyed, Daniel followed the detour. 2 hours later he learned what happened. A massive collision. A devastating accident. Exactly where he would have been. Exactly when he would have been there. The northern road. The date. The warning. Every detail matched. Daniel sat in silence. Unable to process what he had just learned. Had something saved his life? Had the figure known? Or was it coincidence? Most people would stop there. Most people would accept survival and move on. But Daniel became obsessed. Because one question haunted him. Why him? Why would something cross the boundary between life and death to save one ordinary man? The answer arrived months later. Another notebook entry. Hidden between pages. One line. Written in shaky handwriting. The message is never about you alone. Daniel finally understood. The warning wasn't meant only for him. His survival would affect others. People he hadn't met yet. Lives connected to his future. A chain reaction stretching far beyond anything he could see. And suddenly everything changed. Because what if that's how life works? What if some moments seem small but secretly change generations? What if a single decision tonight alters the course of your entire future? What if the message isn't really about ghosts? What if it's about attention? Awareness. Listening. How many warnings have you ignored? How many instincts have you dismissed? How many times has something deep inside whispered, "Don't go there. Don't trust that person. Don't give up. Keep going." And you ignored it. Maybe the most terrifying thing isn't that ghosts exist. Maybe the most terrifying thing is realizing how often we refuse to listen. Daniel never saw the figure again after discovering the truth. No final goodbye. No explanation. No dramatic ending. Just silence. Its mission was complete. The message had been delivered. But here's where this story becomes strange. Very strange. Years later, researchers examining the property found records showing previous owners had reported similar experiences. The same shadow. The same silent warnings. The same feeling of being watched. Generation after generation. Decade after decade. One house. One presence. One purpose. A messenger. And if that's true, then tonight I want you to remember something. Maybe every unexplained moment isn't random. Maybe every strange feeling isn't meaningless. Maybe some messages arrive in forms we don't understand. A dream. A coincidence. A sudden feeling. A voice in the back of your mind. A warning you can't explain. Because the future rarely announces itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. And the people who listen change everything. So before you leave, think carefully. If a ghost in your house had one message for you, one message capable of changing your future forever, would you listen? Or would you scroll away and never know what it was trying to tell you? Daniel thought the story was over. The warning had come true. The accident had happened. The shadow had vanished. And for nearly 2 years, life returned to normal. At least, that's what he believed. But some stories don't end when the ghost disappears. Some stories begin. One rainy evening, Daniel was cleaning the attic. The notebook remained locked inside a wooden drawer downstairs. He hadn't opened it in months. He wanted distance from everything that had happened. Distance from the questions. Distance from the fear. Distance from the impossible. Yet while sorting through old boxes, he found something strange. A photograph. Black and white. Very old. The edges were torn. The faces were faded. But one detail immediately caught his attention. Near the back of the photograph stood a dark figure. Watching. Not posing. Not smiling. Watching. Daniel's heart stopped. The shape looked identical to the figure that had appeared in his room. Same height. Same posture. Same impossible darkness. He flipped the photograph over. Written in faded ink were 4 chilling words. He appears before change. Daniel stared at the sentence for a long time. Before change. What did that mean? That night he unlocked the notebook again. Page after page suddenly felt different. Details he had missed before now stood out. Small notes scribbled in the margins. Warnings. Observations. Questions. Then he found a page folded tightly together. As though his grandfather had intentionally hidden it. Inside was another message. One that made Daniel's blood run cold. If the figure returns, do not ignore the second warning. The second warning. Daniel's hands shook. There had never been a second warning. Had there? Suddenly the lights in the house flickered. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then darkness. The entire house went black. Silence filled every room. The kind of silence that feels alive. The kind that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. Daniel reached for his phone. The flashlight turned on. Its weak beam cut through the darkness. And that's when he saw it. At the end of the hallway. The figure. Back again. Standing perfectly still. Watching. For 2 years it had been gone. Now it had returned. And somehow. It looked different. Not angry. Not threatening. Urgent. As though time was running out. Daniel's throat tightened. The figure slowly raised one arm. Then pointed. Not toward the storage room. Not toward the attic. Toward the front door. Then it vanished. The lights instantly returned. The house became normal again. But Daniel wasn't normal. His mind raced. The second warning. The front door. What was outside? He opened the door cautiously. Rain poured from the sky. The street was empty. No cars. No people. No movement. Nothing. Then he noticed something near the mailbox. A small package. There was no shipping label. No sender. No return address. Just his name. Daniel. Nothing else. His pulse quickened. He carried it inside. The box was old. Much older than it should have been. The cardboard looked decades old. Inside was a single envelope. And inside the envelope was a letter. The handwriting matched his grandfather's perfectly. But that was impossible. His grandfather had been dead for years. The letter contained only one sentence. The message was never about survival. It's about what comes next. Daniel read the sentence again. And again. And again. The message was never about survival. It's about what comes next. A chill moved through his body. Because suddenly he realized something terrifying. The accident hadn't been the destination. It had only been the beginning. Everything that happened afterward mattered more. Much more. For weeks Daniel searched for answers. Every record. Every document. Every old newspaper connected to the property. Eventually he discovered something disturbing. The house had witnessed a pattern. Every 40 years. Without fail. Someone received a warning. Someone survived a tragedy. And afterward, something important happened. A teacher who inspired thousands. A doctor who saved hundreds of lives. A firefighter who rescued entire families. A writer whose words changed people forever. Each person believed they had simply gotten lucky. But Daniel began to wonder. What if luck wasn't the explanation? What if survival carried responsibility? What if being saved meant something was expected afterward? The idea haunted him. Then one night he had a dream. A dream more vivid than reality. He stood inside an endless hallway. Doors stretched in every direction. Thousands of them. Maybe millions. Each door represented a different future. A different life. A different choice. At the far end stood the figure. Waiting. Daniel approached slowly. For the first time, the figure spoke. Its voice sounded distant. Like an echo traveling across centuries. It said only 6 words. You still think this is fear. Then the dream ended. Daniel woke up gasping. The words echoed inside his mind all day. You still think this is fear. At first he didn't understand. Then it hit him. The figure had never acted like a monster. Never attacked. Never threatened. Never harmed. Everything Daniel felt came from his own fear. Not from the figure itself. The figure brought warnings. Guidance. Messages. And suddenly an uncomfortable realization appeared. Maybe some opportunities in life look frightening. Maybe some paths feel dangerous because they're unfamiliar. Maybe fear isn't always a signal to stop. Sometimes it's a signal that something important is waiting ahead. Months passed. Daniel slowly changed. He stopped running from difficult decisions. Stopped ignoring instincts. Stopped postponing dreams. And strange things began happening. Good things. Unexpected things. Doors opened. Opportunities appeared. People entered his life at exactly the right moments. Coincidences stacked upon coincidences until they no longer felt like coincidences. Then came the biggest surprise of all. Daniel met a woman named Sarah. Their connection was immediate. Natural. Powerful. Years later they married. Eventually they had a daughter. And one evening while holding his newborn child, Daniel finally understood the warning. If he had died on the northern road, none of this would exist. His daughter wouldn't exist. The lives she would touch wouldn't exist. The future would be different. An entire chain of events depended on one choice. One warning. One moment. One message. And that realization changed everything. Because suddenly the story wasn't about ghosts anymore. It was about consequences. The invisible connections between choices and futures. The unseen threads linking one life to another. Daniel looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully and wondered something. How many people are alive today because someone listened to a warning? How many futures exist because someone changed direction at the last second? How many miracles are hidden inside ordinary moments? Years later, when Daniel became old, he wrote his own notebook. Just like his grandfather. He recorded everything. Every encounter. Every warning. Every lesson. And on the final page he wrote something meant for whoever might find it next. Something meant for you. He wrote. The message is not that ghosts are real. The message is that your future is listening. Your choices matter more than you know. Pay attention. Trust what feels true. And when life whispers, listen before it starts screaming. Maybe that's why you're here tonight. Maybe out of billions of videos, billions of stories, billions of distractions, you ended up here. Listening. Thinking. Wondering. Because somewhere deep inside, every person senses it. The feeling that life is trying to tell them something. A direction. A warning. A purpose. A message. And perhaps the scariest thing isn't a ghost standing in the corner of your room. Perhaps the scariest thing is discovering that your future has been trying to reach you all along. And perhaps tonight was one of those messages. For years, Daniel believed he finally understood the mystery. The shadow had warned him. The warning had saved him. The future had unfolded. The story seemed complete. But the most terrifying truth was still hidden. Waiting. Patiently. Like a secret buried beneath the foundation of the house itself. It began on a cold winter night. Daniel was now older. His daughter, Emma, was 16. The notebook remained locked away. Untouched. Unread. A relic from another chapter of life. Then, at exactly 3:17 a.m., a scream shattered the silence. Daniel bolted upright. The sound had come from Emma's room. His heart pounded as he ran down the hallway. When he reached her door, she was sitting upright in bed. Terrified. Trembling. Unable to speak. Daniel switched on the light. "What's wrong?" he asked. Emma looked toward the corner of the room. Her face had gone completely pale. Then she whispered 7 words that froze Daniel's blood. "There's someone standing over there." The room was empty. At least to him. But Daniel already knew. He knew exactly what she had seen. The figure. The same shadow. The same impossible presence. The same watcher. After all these years. It had returned. But this time it wasn't visiting him. It was visiting her. The next morning Emma described everything. The shape. The darkness. The feeling of being watched. The silent stare. Every detail matched Daniel's experiences perfectly. She had never read the notebook. She knew nothing about the story. Yet somehow she described the figure exactly. Word for word. Daniel realized something terrifying. The message wasn't passed through houses. It wasn't tied to buildings. It wasn't connected to locations. It followed bloodlines. Generation after generation. One family. One messenger. One purpose. For several weeks nothing happened. Then Emma began having dreams. Strange dreams. Detailed dreams. Dreams that felt more real than waking life. In one dream she walked through a forest covered in fog. In another she stood beside an ocean under a black sky. But the ending never changed. No matter where the dream started. The figure was always waiting. Watching. Silent. And every time she woke up at exactly 3:17 a.m. Not 3:16. Not 3:18. Always 3:17. One evening Emma asked a question Daniel had been avoiding. What does it want? Daniel didn't answer. Because the truth was, he didn't know. Years ago he thought he knew. Now he wasn't so sure. That night he opened his grandfather's notebook again. Then his own notebook. For hours he compared notes. Patterns emerged. Patterns he had never noticed before. The warnings weren't random. Every message appeared before a major turning point. A crossroads. A decision. A moment capable of changing everything. And suddenly a frightening possibility entered his mind. What if the figure wasn't predicting the future? What if it was protecting it? The idea refused to leave. Days later Emma received a scholarship offer from a prestigious school hundreds of miles away. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. But accepting it meant leaving home. Leaving friends. Leaving everything familiar behind. Emma was torn. Part of her wanted to go. Part of her was terrified. And then the dreams intensified. Every night. Without fail. The figure appeared. Watching. Waiting. Saying nothing. Until one night. For the first time. It spoke. Only 3 words. Don't be afraid. Emma woke instantly. Those words echoed through her mind. Don't be afraid. She told Daniel everything. And for a long moment he simply stared. Because those were the exact words he needed when he was younger. The exact words he had never heard. The exact words he wished someone had told him. Suddenly everything became clear. The figure wasn't warning against danger. It was warning against fear. Fear of change. Fear of growth. Fear of stepping into the unknown. Fear that keeps people trapped in lives they were never meant to live. Emma accepted the scholarship. Months later she left. The house felt emptier than ever. Yet Daniel felt something unexpected. Peace. For the first time in decades. Peace. Then came the night that changed everything. The final night. The night that answered every question. Daniel woke at 3:17 a.m. The air felt different. The house felt different. The silence felt different. He sat up slowly. And there it was. The figure. Standing near the window. Watching him one last time. But tonight something was different. The darkness surrounding it seemed thinner. Almost transparent. Like mist before sunrise. Daniel stood. Fear no longer controlled him. Curiosity did. He stepped closer. Closer than ever before. And that's when he saw something impossible. The figure wasn't a shadow. It only looked like one. Beneath the darkness was a face. Not a monster. Not a demon. Not a ghost. A human face. Ancient. Wise. Peaceful. And suddenly Daniel understood. The figure wasn't hiding. His fear had hidden it. The message had never been about horror. It had always been about perspective. The figure smiled gently. Then spoke one final sentence. A sentence Daniel would never forget. The future thanks you. Those words echoed through the room. The future thanks you. And then the figure vanished. Not dramatically. Not violently. Simply faded. Like a candle extinguished by dawn. Gone. Forever. Daniel stood there for a long time. Thinking. Remembering. Understanding. Then his eyes moved toward the window. Outside, the first light of morning appeared. A new day. A new chapter. A new beginning. Years passed. Emma grew older. Built a remarkable life. Touched countless people. Inspired thousands. And often Daniel wondered how different everything would have been if he had ignored that first warning. If fear had won. If curiosity had lost. If he had never listened. The answer was simple. An entirely different future would exist. And perhaps that's the real message hidden inside this story. Not that ghosts exist. Not that shadows watch us. Not that strange things happen in old houses. The real message is much deeper. Every person eventually reaches a crossroads. A moment where fear says turn back. And possibility says keep going. Most people listen to fear. Very few listen to possibility. And that decision changes everything. Maybe your crossroads is happening right now. Maybe there's a dream you've been postponing. A goal you've been avoiding. A decision you've been delaying. A future you've been afraid to pursue. Maybe that's why this story found you. Because the message isn't Daniel's anymore. It's yours. The ghost in your house. The voice in your mind. The strange feeling you can't explain. Maybe they're all pointing toward the same thing. Your future. Waiting. Calling. Hoping you'll listen. And if there is one final message hidden in the darkness. One final truth whispered from beyond fear itself. It is this. The life you're meant to live is waiting on the other side of the decision you're most afraid to make. And somewhere, beyond what you can see, your future is hoping you choose courage.